Hey there and welcome everyone, it's Egwin from Scope of Life and Beyond Systems. This is part 2 in the short video series on how much effort it should actually take to maintain a healthy posture and healthy natural movement. And if you haven't watched video number 1, please do so, jump to my channel, check it out there. It is also linked in the description below and it will be linked at the end of this video. Now, this is all based on the question that one of you asked me, which was how do I deal with lazy hours, or do I experience lazy hours in terms of do I always keep a healthy body posture? I answered that in the last video really quickly, simply by saying no, I'm not 24 hours a day 100% perfectly aligned. But the point is, no one really is, and no one should be. And this no one should be is really maybe the most important aspect of it all. Because we need variability also in our posture. We need variance in tensional patterns and so on to express ourselves. And sometimes we just simply can't express everything that we want with perfect body posture or perfect structure. Another aspect here is this. I do not consider any time where I don't have perfect posture to be a lazy hour. Why is that? Because the concept of having a lazy hour implies that it takes a lot of effort to actually create or maintain posture. And the fun thing is, maintaining a healthy posture shouldn't take a lot of effort at all. All that it takes is the proper body coordination, and alignment will follow naturally. Now, yes, there are some specific situations where it might be necessary to train muscles, where it might be necessary to actually apply physical conditioning and strengthening in order to be able to get back towards a healthy coordinational pattern again, especially when, which is quite common nowadays actually, many people start to lose their sensory perception of themselves, sensory perception of their muscles, and that sensory feedback. If that sensory feedback loop is somewhat like impeded, if there is a problem, then sometimes we do not have the necessary conscious control over our structure that allows us to maintain a healthy structure in a healthy, effortless way. But there is a short way and a long way to actually regain this sensomotoric feedback. What the fitness industry did was create a quick fix. A quick fix is pretty much what most people would like nowadays for pretty much everything that they do, because they don't have a lot of time, and because our society is actually nowadays built in such a way that the focus lies primarily on creating a result. Now, the fun thing here is the result we should all be looking for is not a healthy posture. The result we should all strive for is being able to get in touch with each and every part of our body in a conscious way, having perfect sensomotoric feedback from all our different body parts, because then what we can do is then we know where should we train. Then we know what type of coordinational exercise do I need in order to reset my body to a completely free and healthy and natural state. And perfect posture then is just simply the result of this type of work, of this type of training actually. This is what should be in the focus, because that's the most sustainable way to do it. As another one of you guys here on the YouTube channel actually pointed out a couple of weeks ago, it is absolutely unsustainable to think about posture as something that you have to create using conscious tension in your muscles. And I think there are two different ideas out there in the fitness world at the moment, depending on the education level of the fitness trainer you're working with. Some of those ideas, and also physiotherapists and doctors, well, most doctors aren't really trained in biomechanics at all. Biomechanics normally is not a subject that you learn in med school. Maybe there are some countries where it is, but in most countries I know it's not part of it. So most doctors, if they don't specialize on biomechanics and on really how the body structurally, biomechanically works, they never learned it in med school. Obviously, there are doctors out there who are specialized, again, but that's a different thing. Now, one part is this attempt to train a muscle. Say, one of my classic examples is if someone comes in with an unstable lumbar spine or with pain in their lumbar spine, the answer of most fitness trainers is, okay, you have to train your abdominal muscles. Now, training the abdominal muscles is in general a good idea, but if the transported idea is you have to train your abdominal muscles and keep them engaged in order to protect and stabilize the spine, then this concept is complete BS. This concept works on a short term, but it creates a lot of problems. One of them being, if you don't really tackle the origin of this problem, you create more tension in your abdominal area. That again translates to a reduced flow of blood in your spine, in your vertebrae, and to be more precise, in the area where your vertebrae actually touch your intervertebral discs. If the CO2 levels in that area rise too high, then the discs get actually damaged, because you need a very, very specific CO2 level, which again has to do with how oxygenated the blood is that runs in this area, in those end plates of your vertebrae, because that pH level actually decides how hydrophil, so how much your intervertebral discs actually have the biochemical ability to pull in water, which a healthy disc should have. So that's just one of the many, many, many different aspects that need to be considered here. So let's take another example. Let's say, for instance, we are talking about our shoulder girdle. Our shoulder girdle, sometimes the shoulders, they roll to the front. Well, they should actually naturally roll to the front so that my scapula is completely flat on my thorax area. All right, now the second, someone comes in with the idea that you have to pull your shoulders back in order, for instance, to fix forward head posture or something like that. Again, the idea is transported that you should use continuous conscious tension in some of your big movement muscles in order to fix a postural problem. But most postural problems are coordinational problems and are problems in small muscles rather than in the big ones. Not all of them, again, most. So what is really needed is the ability to differentiate very, very precisely between what is needed and what is not. One thing is for sure, the concept of having to use a skeletal muscle consciously all the time, that is just simply not sustainable, and it is biochemically not possible. Because those muscles, most of those big movement muscles, the prime movers, they simply do not have a cellular metabolism that allows them to be active 24/7 non-stop. You need pulsation in there, you need change, you need releases in order for the muscle to literally biochemically recharge, to be even able to do work again. If this work that you try to demand from your muscle is something that the muscle just simply can't give you anymore, what happens is that you get frustrated because someone told you you have to train your abdominal muscles, you have to train your shoulder girdle in order to correct this posture. And if this concept of training isn't properly explained, yes, there is an explanation that sort of balances this whole concept of training out, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if that's not properly explained, then the only thing that most people with our social conditioning in other areas nowadays get is, okay, so the solution is, here is a muscle, it is weak, that's because I have problems, I need to train the muscle, thus, as soon as that muscle is stronger, it allows me to keep that posture up for longer. But whether or not you can keep that posture for long periods of time doesn't have to do anything with the strength of the muscle, because the strength of the muscle in terms of how long it can work is determined by biochemical aspects and not by the strength per se, so not by, say, the amount of kilograms that you can use. Now, obviously, yes, the amount of kilograms or pounds or whatever you can pump also depends on those biochemical aspects. But the point here is this: biochemically speaking, your muscles, again, your muscles, your prime movers, your skeletal muscles, cannot do work for prolonged periods of time without rest in between. So, if you run on the concept that you actually use your muscles, the ones you can actively and consciously engage, in order to keep your posture upright all day long, this concept is flawed and it's not possible to do it like that. What happens if you are really persistent and try to do that for long periods of time is that the muscle actually starts to harden out, and the fascia around the muscle actually starts to harden out as well. Thus, you create a certain type of stability, but a type of stability that isn't really good, because it's a type of stability that you can't get rid of anymore. It's a type of stability that actually limits your mobility and your flexibility, which again increases your risk of injury once you start moving again. So what really has to be done here is you need to understand that the first thing you need to do is focus on coordination and movement quality. The second aspect is once you retrained this conscious perception and the ability to govern every single skeletal muscle consciously again, once that ability is there, then the body posture, a healthy posture, is a naturally occurring result of that. Yes, this is possible. Yes, it sounds strange. And no, it's not difficult. It only takes conscious training of agonist-antagonistic muscle groups. It takes a couple of very basic principles of how to actually govern a muscle. And I'm talking about some of those principles actually in my Foundation Builder online course. Here and there, I also talked about it a little on my channel here. And I might give some more information about that, because it's really important for you guys to actually understand that. And I'm not the only one saying that. That's the next maybe really important thing here. The other aspect, when we think about movement and posture, when you fix movement, you automatically fix posture, and not the other way around. So the concept of trying to fix something static, the concept of posture, in a inherently dynamic process which is our whole body, is just not very good, not very, how shall I put it, not very efficient. So we're talking about a dynamic aspect. Our dynamic is we are alive. Our heart is still pumping. We still breathe in, breathe out. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video. So there is dynamic. There is movement. Each and every one of us moves more or less every single day. And the time when we really are in a completely stagnant posture should actually be rather limited. Sometimes, yeah, we just sit in front of, I don't know, say a TV or in the cinema and watch a movie with friends. Obviously, we're not walking around all the time while watching a movie in the cinemas. That's all right. To consider this lazy hours, I wouldn't do that actually. Because sometimes it's okay for the body for short periods of time, for an hour, for 2 hours, if that's not happening every single day, to actually fall out of what would be considered structurally perfect. But yet again, even while sitting, instead of thinking about tensing up certain areas to keep your posture, once you position yourself in such a way that you can actually let go of certain areas, the posture will literally erect itself automatically. I know that sounds completely against every single thing that you probably have ever heard, but that's literally what's happening here. That's the truth. And every single one can do it. I've seen it in hundreds and hundreds of students. Every single one can do it. And I can explain the biomechanical principles behind it, and not just me. A growing number of people out there, luckily, a growing number of people out there are actually starting to think in such terms. And this is not just due to my doing. It's always a specific time and a specific requirement in a large population that triggers the emergence of different concepts, and some of them then obviously overlap. So there is an internationally growing movement out there of people who really understand body structure and how it works in a sustainable way, and who also are willing to teach that, and who focus on people who are also willing to spend that strange amount of time, quality, on literally rediscovering their connection to the body, their connection to themselves. And this is where this journey should actually lead. This is what all of this is actually about. Now, getting back a little bit out of the philosophical aspect here, one more thing I want you to consider. If you tense up one part of your body, say you tense up, for instance, your lumbar spine, then other parts of the body, they don't need to work, and some other parts, again, need to work more in order to keep your body centered and balanced. The same is true for the reverse. If you contract your abdominal muscles, some parts of your body can release because they don't have to do the work of the abdominals anymore. And some parts of the body, they need to tense up in order to transport this new tensional pattern in all the other areas. So where I'm getting at with that is literally every single part in the body is connected to every single other part in the body. That's obvious. But the fun thing is, if you focus on training a specific muscle group in the body, understand that all other parts in your body, they have to adjust. They have to adjust in order to compensate, quote unquote, for that additional tension. Now, if this additional tension is in the right place, then what happens is that some parts of the body can suddenly let go and give work to the structures that are actually designed to do that work. For instance, if you have very tight hamstrings, but your abdominals are extremely weak, and I explained the concept of weak muscles in another video. I'm just touching on to that here really quickly. If that's the case, then your hamstrings, they will take part of the work that your abdominals are doing in terms of stabilizing the pelvis, and your hamstrings will get really tight. Now, but the funny aspect and the most important aspect here is to understand what is a weak muscle in this concept. A weak muscle, more often than not, is not a muscle that literally can't work because of it is too weak, but it is a muscle that can't work because you do not have the sensomotoric feedback to tell the muscle to actually do the work. And yes, there is this other aspect of a muscle actually being too weak, structurally, physically, a completely atrophied muscle, a muscle that already got very thin. Once that happens, then yes, it is necessary or can be necessary to train that muscle up to a normal, healthy strength state in terms of a normally healthy thickness, literally, of that muscle, so that it actually fills out the whole passive structure, the fascial structure that surrounds it properly, in order to also create this internal pressure aspect that is sometimes necessary in order to balance out joints and muscles and organs and so on and so on. Now, you see, right here it's getting quite complicated. I could bring more and more examples, but then this video is probably going to be another 2 or 3 hours, which is why I'll cut it down here. And yeah, just watch a couple of my other videos where I'm talking about this more in detail. Actually, what I've been talking about right now at the end, about the thickness of the muscle, I link that video at the end of this video, so in a minute or two, so you can jump to that video as well. If you haven't watched part 1, make sure to check it. Part 1 is a lot shorter than this one. And yeah, if you have any more questions, leave them in the comment box below. Make sure to like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so. And I also give a lot of information on my channel about how to actually naturally retrain proper postural strength and coordination. And actually we are currently in a series that's wrapping around developmental movement and how to actually regain this connection with one's body. And other than that, there is always the online course where you can jump in as well, where I really talk about more this mind-body connection and how to use that to sustainably keep the posture without having to think about holding tight in the muscles all the time. Alright, that's enough. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you around soon and all the best, guys. Bye.